Hi everyone, and you are welcome to this lecture, Introduction to Date and Time. In this lecture, I want to introduce you to some concepts that you have to be familiar with before you start working programmatically with date and time. So I will start by a quick introduction, then we will understand how computers count time, we will see how dates can be shown, we will understand the concept of time zones, and I will end up this lecture by a quick summary. So let's get started. The first thing that you have to know that working with dates and times is one of the most important things that you have to learn about. Why? Because whether you are a web developer, a machine learning engineer, or a data scientist, you will face date and time in your project. For example, if you plan to be a web developer and you want to create a sign-up page, usually you ask your customers about the birthday, which is a date. Also, if you plan to be a machine learning engineer, you have to know that date or time could be one of dataset features to implement the final model. Finally, if you plan to be a data scientist, for example, date and time is quite important to analyze variables trends over time. So literally, date and time exist everywhere. Now let's see how computers count the time. The first thing that you have to know that computers count time from an instant called the Unix epoch. And this occurred on 1st of January 1970 at 12 a.m. at UTC. When we say UTC, I mean by that Coordinate Universal Time. And this refers to the time at a longitude of 0. In other words, the time at the area that is located on this longitude. Also, you have to know that UTC and GMT are two acronyms could be used interchangeably, and GMT is an acronym for Greenwich Mean Time. Now, let me show you this simple script. If I say import time, and time is a module in Python, time.time, you will find output like this. And this weird number actually represents the number of seconds since the Unix epoch, and it's called Unix time. So when I mention Unix time, I mean number of seconds from the Unix epoch, which is the 1st of January 1970. It's clear that this number is not a human readable number, and we have to convert this number into a way which is easily to be used. So, we need a standard to represent the date. For example, in USA, dates are usually written starting with months, then day, and then year. As my example here, 31st of February 2021. Whereas in Europe, for example, we write the date starting with the day, then months, and finally the year. As we see here the same date, 31st of February 2020. And we have to know that different cultures have different formats to represent the date. And this makes dealing with date and time a little bit complex. Therefore, people have developed what we call the International Organization for Standardization Standard, ISO standard. In this standard, we represent the date and time in the following way. We see here 4 Ys, then MM, DD, HH, MM, SS. Which mean the 4 Ys, year in 4 numbers, then month, and you have to put 0 if the month is 1, 2, 3, and so on. So 0, 1, which means the first month. DD represent the day. HH represent the hour. MM represent the minute. SS represent the second. So whenever you see in Python a function that will print out the date in ISO format, you have to know that the expected output is something like this format. Now let's talk about time zones. If you check the time now in USA, you will find that it's different from European countries. Why this happened? Because these two countries or continents are in different time zones. Before I explain what is the meaning of time zone, keep in mind that the reference time is the UTC time, which is the time at the longitude 0. Now let me define what is time zones. Simply, time zones defines how many hours and minutes they are offset from UTC. In other words, how many hours and minutes this area is late or earlier comparing to the UTC. When I say late or earlier, this means that the offset could be positive or negative. Positive for late area and negative for earlier area. Now let's recap what we have learned in this lecture. Working with dates and times is one of the most important things that you have to learn about because you are going to find date and time literally in every project related to software engineering or machine learning. Computers count time from an instant called the Unix epoch. Unix time represents number of seconds since the Unix epoch. Also, we see together the ISO format, which represent the date and time in the following format. After that, time zones have been defined as how many hours and minutes they are offset from UTC. And don't forget that UTC stands for Coordinated Universal Time, and this refers to the time at longitude 0. That's all for this lecture. Thank you very much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.